Vishal, by the way, that was a
Is
very
on.
informative information you shared. I am very curious about how this means film industry, the internal uh, workings. I am really curious to know a lot of things. But I am interested in South, like Malayalam industry. Uh,
Malayalam is very
Okay,
professional in this
mhm.
cinema. It's a
Yeah,
totally,
definitely we'll discuss about that in
yeah,
future.
it's a
Future.
different story.
Yeah.
so we can get started with the discussion on Unrelated, and maybe after the discussion is over, we can go back to what we were talking about before the stream.
Yeah,
So,
sure, Vivek.
okay, to start with this film, obviously we're all welcome to share our first reactions, but did anyone have a very uncomfortable experience watching this film? Because some films are happy, some films are scary, but I thought this film embodied discomfort throughout throughout the film. Curious to see if others had a experience like that.
Vivek, I think Anandita has said that why don't you introduce the film? So,
Oh
maybe
right. Oh sorry, I just saw the chat.
maybe that's it.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, Unrelated is Joanna Hogg's first film. She's an art house filmmaker who used to work as a television director, and this is the first debut film that she got. Just a second. And yeah, she's made very few films. She's made I believe 3 or 4 films. 1, 2, 3, 4 films, and I've written down a description of the director in the main group. So please take a look at that later on if you get a chance. Unrelated specifically is about an a lady in her mid 40s or late 40s. I'm not sure what the exact range is, but she takes a break from her relationship and goes to spend time with an extended family on holiday in Italy. And yeah, the entire film is about her trying to find a place in the family dynamic, at the same time trying to resolve some internal issues that she's been struggling with, which is affecting her relationship. So yeah, that's a short synopsis. Then yeah, I would like to go back to the question I asked. Is I found the film extremely uh, uncomfortable, and I'm curious if that was also the experience. By the way, hi Varun. Are you guys in a group or is this just one person?
No, this is actually Nikhil, and I'm low on battery charge.
Okay, fine. What about?
So there is no, there is Varun here with me, and there is also Apurva.
Okay,
So we'll add our opinions as time goes by.
perfect. Okay. So yeah, guys, please take over.
I actually struggled to. I think the film took a very long. My experience watching it is what is this about? I kept asking myself. Maybe it took me a long while to figure out what she's going through, but it was kind of very loose in the at least for the first 40 minutes. It took a long time to even try to establish a point. But the main thing I could get is also thinking of the theme of the month, right? The mental wellness. I think it's all about a struggle, right? And I think it's also about loneliness in a way, especially towards the end. And basically, the struggle she's having in her personal life. That's the way I saw it. And yeah, it's a sort of a bitterness and a sadness and a loneliness as a theme throughout the movie.
That's interesting. I actually had the exact opposite experience of yours. So I'm watching this film after a very long time, and this time around when I'm seeing it, I noticed how particular she is with not only the framing and all these things, but also how much time do you give a shot? that kind of thing. How much the room does a shot need to breathe, and how much time do you need to absorb what she's trying to convey? Because there's a lot of communication which happens beyond dialogues in this film. And if you notice, the first 40 minutes, which you said, which you didn't connect to, right? If you notice, the first half of the film, she's trying to find a place within the young group young group of kids. So especially if you pay attention to the composition, she starts out at the edge and slowly she gets more and more integrated into the group, and then she starts feeling an attraction towards one of the older brothers, which is I forgot his name, Oakley, I think, right?
Oakley.
Yeah. So then she begins a closer. Yeah, Nikhil, please go ahead.
Sorry, I think it was Brady, not Oakley. I'm not wrong.
Tom Hiddleston's character was called Oakley.
Okay, I'm sorry. Please go on.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the first half of the film, and then in the second half of the film, once that big confrontation happens at the midpoint of the film, then you can see she's been ejected from that circle of people, and now she's trying to find a place within the older group of people, which is three parents and herself, and she finds it difficult to fit in over there as well, and which leads to the breakdown. So yeah, every scene in the film, I thought if you watch it again, maybe in the future, some other day, pay attention to what this scene is doing for the rest of the film, and you might be surprised how much she's conveying piece by piece. So you didn't see it particularly right now, but you definitely felt it because you raised points about loneliness and things like that, and you'll be able to elaborate it further if you revisit it later on.
Yeah, I suspect that because people. I was asking myself, what is the point of this? Where is this going? Like literally, that's what I was asking myself. But I don't think people go to this length to make a feature film that is like so truly pointless, right? Like, so there's obviously a very deep hidden meaning that I've missed, and I do agree. I think I need to see it like multiple times to figure it out.
Um, my first impressions of this movie, actually, I enjoyed the movie. I was able to connect with the characters. That being a odd one out because she's unable to fit in neither of the two groups. That is the middle age group, and this another young age group. So I could and there coming to the cinematography and way how it is represented. I really like that walking scene where the first one are how they are walking, and she's always shown as a odd one out. And even that's why I put in the group that I was able to appreciate the poster because she's showing her back, which means she's trying to hide herself. She is trying to disconnect from the reality or the world in order to find her or resolve her internal emotions. So I really enjoyed. Yeah, as Vivek said, there were little discomfort. There was little impatience in me when I was watching. It was saddening what she was going through because the camera is always on her face, and whenever her face is focused, I was really uncomfortable because that actor has done a very great job. It was very natural, and whenever her face was projected, the camera was focused on face. I was really uncomfortable to watch that because she was feeling those emotions, and I was able to feel those emotions too. So yeah, so I would agree with Vivek too there. And yeah, my first impression, yeah, I enjoyed it, and there was a lot to learn. Yeah, we will. I will put in other points for the discussion.
Yeah, nicely put. Vishal, Anandita, Nikhil, any of you have anything to add?
I Vivek knows my feelings about this film. I have seen this film twice now. So when I saw it for the first time, I found it to be. I was not impressed by the film at all. I couldn't find anything that I really enjoyed about that film. And it, I saw her films, and then I saw Souvenir, her latest film at Mami, and it was a thoroughly boring, like out of this world boring experience. But I was
I
talking to
like how you put it.
it's a 2.5 hour long film. So I was talking to Vivek, and so there were three filmmakers that over the years, because of Vivek, I have gone back to. So Joanna Hogg was one of them. I was like, okay, let me go back to her. So when I saw it again, I could see what she was doing with the film. So I was quite impressed by. I'm not really a fan of the film. It doesn't stand out for. It doesn't stand out to me for anything. But I was quite impressed by what she was doing with the film. So keeping in mind the fact that it is a $150,000 film, it was very exquisitely, like Vivek said, it's great bang for the buck. It's uh, every shot is doing something. It's so there are films where you look at a film and you say, okay, this film is good, but I wish they'd spend more money on it. That's what's lacking with the film. But when you look at Unrelated, the one thing that impressed me the most was at no point do you feel, oh, I wish they'd spent more for the film because then it would have been a better film. So that is the only compliment that I can pay to Unrelated. It's quite an impressive feat, and uh, yeah, and it's a good film to watch. I would say for the in terms of the theme that we are having.
Nikhil, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed the entirety of the film except for one bit where I was sort of disappointed. It was, I guess, when she begins to cry, her outburst. That I felt it might have done better with a medium shot. But I guess I would probably change my mind as the discussion goes on. But I thoroughly enjoyed the film, man.
What about you, Anandita? Did you like the film, dislike the film, or were you didn't have a great reaction? Or how did it go?
Uh, yeah, I think this is a movie where it requires a lot of you need to be super engaged with it for sure, like not just during the movie but after as well. So for me, just like Samartha, the movie for me came together towards the end. Even for me, it did look like, okay, there's this woman who's clearly had a fight and just wants to forget about what's about her life, her real life, and just sort of disappear, and sort of feel young. You could get that hint. What was not very clear was like why, what was driving that? What was the underlying, not the underlying reason, but what was going on in her mind? That was not very apparent until towards the end. So for me, it's only the last. For the first 1 hour, it didn't really push me to think about what was happening. It's only the last 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes is when I started to realize her actions and what the character was trying to do and how the surroundings around her sort of helped her through that journey of whatever she was doing. I did connect a lot with her in the last 30 minutes. That's when it gets very intense for her. And it's also a point where she's no longer escaping, she's no longer running away, but she's actually coming, she's facing her reality and her truth of sorts. She's finally thinking about what really happened or why was she upset about, which we didn't really get to see in the beginning. So that's when her actions made sense. You know, why was she hanging out with the younger folks? Maybe she just wanted to feel young. You know, the ending obviously shows that, you know, she suddenly crossed that time where she knows that there's something that she cannot get any longer. Probably a sign of, I mean, it's a big deal for women who do go through that for sure. So it just made sense why she sort of wanted to act a little crazy or be adventurous and just hang out with the youngster, you know, just to feel a little more alive in her own way, I guess. And, you know, so that's something I feel it's very, that does happen, you know, of very often it does happen, you know. And there's this line that her friend V talks about rather she makes a comment, the exchange that she has with her friend in the hotel. She does talk about the lost opportunity or the chances. And that's where I feel that I've had that conversation of sorts with a friend. You know, it felt very real to me. So I really liked the movie, the last 30, 40 minutes of it. And that's when it came together. Otherwise, it wasn't remarkable. It wasn't, um, initially, it didn't feel that way. So it's a movie that, you know, you just got to walk by yourself and just sort of think about it after the movie comes to an end. And that's the experience it left me with.
Since you brought up the point of reality, right? Maybe we can discuss that a little further, because uh, Joanna Hogg has a habit of casting people who are not professional actors and casting who are very experienced, uh, either theatrical or cinematic actors, and she puts them in the same stage at the same time, and that's to make the actors more spontaneous, and it kind of blurs the line between reality and fiction, which I've written in the description. And yeah, this is one of the standout things to me when I saw it, at least way back when, is that this film feels, lack of a better word, naked. And the reason I say that is because you look at any Hollywood film or a Bollywood film, all the experiences are very romanticized, made grander and made more beautiful. Here, there's none of that. In fact, she's making everything more ugly, everything less beautiful, and everything less enjoyable. Even try to think of the brightest moment in the film, and you'll realize like there was nothing spectacular in the film. So, I
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I please,
Tuscany not looking that beautiful is something that nobody would have thought, right? Like they showed
right.
so boring bits
I
of
agree.
roads and buildings. I was like amazed. Like that's amazing. Like people try their best to show the best hotels or the best views of Tuscany.
Right.
And it's only the last scene that you recognize, right? Those are the images that you've seen of Tuscany, you know, those rolling hills, overlapping
Yeah,
ones. That's the only bit that looked like Tuscany or felt like, oh, it must be a beautiful place. Otherwise, it was so drab, and I was
right.
really impressed by the fact that she chose to do that. You know,
Yeah, I
she
wonder
wasn't
if
trying too hard.
yeah, I wonder if that had any subconscious impression on you guys, whoever found the film to be less interesting. And I find this a very clever use of technology, because okay, she had a financial limitation. How do you cross it? So one way you cross it is you use a digital camera, and this is pre-digital cinema cameras. Okay, so she's using some broadcast television grade camera. It's not a high quality camera. So you're not going to get high quality images. What do? You overexpose everything, make sure there's, the sky is white and everything looks dull and ugly. So it matches with, the tonality of the film. So I found that incredibly creative, and creative workaround for a huge problem for a film. Then I forgot what I was talking about. Um, I was talking about realism, right? Right. I was talking about realism. So, uh, yeah, I think I'll come back. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. But if anyone wants to pick up, please
Um,
go ahead.
to add to your Anandita's and Vivek's points, I actually, yeah, I could find out that elements there. Every scene, uh, somewhere I read that when you are sad, when you know that there is no hope, the world automatically starts projecting very sadistic images, like flowers, flowers being dried out, uh, as you all have mentioned, the very ugly kind of atmosphere, ugly kind of environment, ugly in the sense very sadistic. If you see at it, you don't feel motivated or being, you don't feel enthusiastic about being there. So the beginning itself, when the movie begins, it begins in the dark. She is walking on a path and there is a car. So it begins with a darkness. So darkness is a symbol of something bad, something something which is very where you are not, cannot expect any good thing. So she is in a darkness. So the beginning of itself, I thought, okay, yeah, it's something very dark movie, sadistic movie. It's so I was able to go further. So yeah, you have rightly pointed out the use of camera, use of particular environment, flowers, sky. uh, yeah, I was also able to appreciate that part.
Mohammed, you brought up an interesting point because if you think about it, there's a clue hidden in the very first shot of the film. She's dragging her luggage across a dirt road coming from the airport.
Yeah, that's the very beautiful. It's
So if
as if
you,
she's carrying a burden on her, a
so,
burden of emotions.
okay, that is one way to see it. But
Mhm.
if you think about it, there are some 8 to 9 people in the family, I think, right?
Yeah.
Nobody bothered to go pick her up. So she's
Oh.
already forgotten about before she arrives.
Mhm.
So that explains the dynamic of how well these people know each other or how much they care about each other. So yeah, this, for example, this woman claims to be her best friend, but you also find out later that they haven't spoken to each other in years. So,
Mm.
and coming back to the realism point, right? The mixing of actors and non-actors and making everything ugly. It's all a exercise in making the film feel as present as possible. It should feel like you are witnessing this happen in front of you and it's not cinematic in any way. So the camera doesn't move much. And in fact, if you might have paid attention, there's no music in the film at all. So she Joanna Hogg has this habit. She's a big form of diegetic sounds. That's in case anyone doesn't know, diegetic is sounds which take place in the real world, and non-diegetic is background music or emotional support that music adds to the film. So she's a big fan of diegetic sounds, and her belief is that the sounds of an environment are a music itself. So the sounds you hear in northern Italy is different from sounds you hear in central London, and the sounds you hear in the plaza is different from sounds you hear in the hillside. So if you pay attention, she uses sound in a very delicate manner as such. So if you pump up the volume and pay attention to what she's doing with the sounds, and also the image of the villa, right? If you if they don't say it, it kind of looks like a fortress. It's got red walls and it's got a tower on top, and it's very strongly built. But at the same time, everyone can hear everyone at all times. When she's sleeping, she can hear the kids drink, and when you're swimming out in the pool, you can hear people arguing further in the back. So it's a fortress visually, but it's also hollow. That everything is transparent to each other. So the act of that everyone is maintaining, right? That, oh, we are a happy, rich family going on a vacation. That all begins to fall apart the more time you spend with them. So I'll speak more about this, but I would like to hear more thoughts from other members also.
Yeah, that was a good information. I didn't know that natural sound sorry, Vivek, I forgot that word.
But I
Diegetic.
don't think there is music at the end of the film, by the way. I don't think. I think there is music at the end of the film.
The only bit of non-die, there
Hello?
is a
I have
few
not seen the film
seconds.
for a long time, but I remember being impressed by she's not used music, but I think at the end of the film she used music and it like she could have done away with it. But maybe it has some sort of it does something for her.
She
I don't know.
uses a few seconds of non-diegetic music, some pop song when they're driving really fast through the fields. But then it cuts to the interior of the car, and you can see that okay, the car is playing the music.
No,
It's
no, no.
not.
I'm not talking about the car. I think there is some music.
Yeah, last
Yeah, that
scene.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that particular theme plays a little bit through the movie, like occasionally as well. So I think it's that like tiny two lines of music or something that's repeated very loosely as a theme, mostly towards the end. I think.
I think the problem with using the reason for filmmakers like Hogg they use less music is also because music is used as a crutch. Especially if you look at Indian films, you will know because they can't. They, there is this layer that music adds, this dramatic tension or information that music gives out. It's a crutch. So filmmakers, pure filmmakers like Hogg probably, they want to not use it as a crutch. The film should be an experience on its own. So um, that is why I would have preferred if she did not use that piece of music also. But well,
Yeah, that is correct. I've seen a couple interviews of her, and that's exactly it. That she thinks that you don't need the artificial support of uh, music to suggest emotions. If the performance is right and if the storytelling is right, you will pick up on them anyways. So that's the idea.
Except I think that the I totally appreciate that approach, but for a larger audience, it's going to be challenging. I think to get them engaged without any music. So for filmmakers who are willing to be, I remember Girish Kasarvali was talking about Tarkovsky, for example, and he was saying how you need to be involved as an audience, like tremendously to understand what's going on. If you're that kind of person, yes, that would work. But with no music and to sustain it over a body of work, I think it's very impressive, but it will limit the audience as well.
I'll just a little off topic, but uh, holding on to that strand of music. So I saw bits of Tumbad without music. So what happened was Tumbad had multiple directors for whatever reasons. So the original director did not want music, and when except him, when everyone else saw the film, they were like, "Man, we need music." I saw a bit of the film without music, and it was very interesting. Now you add music to that film, it's a different beast. Good, bad, ugly, that's a different question. But like Samartha said, it does cut off the larger audience. But I don't think somebody like Hogg is actually looking for a larger audience. So I think it's all right.
Yeah, great. Yep.
I wanted to talk about the characters a little bit. And so it's been uh, something I've noticed over all her films that the characters she picks, the personality she assigns to these characters are very specific for a very given reason. And there's always a level of criticism that is applied to these characters. She's not very kind to those characters. So basically, she's providing social commentary about this archetype of a person through her films. So I'm wondering if anyone was able to read anything along these lines. Did you notice anything that she's criticizing about any of these characters?
I felt a sympathy kind of thing towards the character, Anna character, uh, but I didn't understand what the director was trying to do with her. Whether she was sympathizing with her or trying to project her as a uh, I don't know, but yeah, I felt very sorry for her because she has crossed. She's in her middle age, and now there is a identity crisis, or mm, yeah, I felt sympathy. But what director was trying to, in what way she was trying to project her, that need to be no, that need to be. I need to understand.
Yeah, for example, okay, I understand, the sympathy argument that she's more sympathetic towards the main character, and that is true to some extent. Um, but at the same time, it also um, is not very kind towards her in the first half of the film. So the first half of the film, where she's new to this family environment and she's trying to find a place, is it with the older people, or is it with the younger people? And then she decides that, okay, I'm going to hang out with the younger people. That everything she's doing is out of character to her. And in fact, there is a small confrontation between the main character and her friend, who's the mother of some of the children, who notices this, that you're being very strange and I don't understand what you're doing and why you're not spending time with us. I had to request you to come into my car, even then you didn't want to come into my car. And so she goes out of character to fit in with someone else, to please these young kids who don't really care if she joins the group or not. And so from that level, I saw a critical eye towards the character in the first half. And also for the other characters, right? If you think about it, this mother character, who's supposed to be the main character's friend, you think, okay, she's a uh, nice older lady who's kind to everyone. But if you also see that, one, you find out that she's not kept in touch with this main character for a very long time, but still expects her to share every single detail of her life with her, all the time. And if she doesn't, that upsets her. And that is also, uncomfortable for this character, that I have this unspoken burden that I must share, but the things I have to share is something I'm still struggling with myself. So, and then if you look at the father, or the stepfather character, Charlie, he he's somewhat of an absent parent. The reason Oakley doesn't get along with his father is, it is insinuated. It's not mentioned in clear words that once the father remarried or had a second marriage, uh, Oakley was basically left on his own, and he focused on his new family, and that's why he's not close with them. So yeah, he's somewhat of an absent father. And then if you look at the kids, uh, they're basically left to their own vices, right? They're drinking, they're smoking, they're dancing, they're causing nuisance, they're creating trouble around the city. And yeah, that's a very poor form of parenting, because they're not taking any parenthood responsibilities. They've they've This is a vacation, so they're treating it like, okay, this is a vacation for me, so I'm going to take a break, which includes taking a break away from kids. And the kids are doing whatever the heck they want. And this is mentioned in the dialogue also, that I need to take some time away from him, and he's going to be fine, he's going to turn out okay, and I don't need to be present every moment of his life. And these things are talked about. So there is a criticism towards these rich upper middle class parents also. And yeah, I'm wondering if anyone saw something along these lines in the film.
I'm sorry, what exactly were you pointing out? I sort of missed a few with it.
Oh man, there was a long 10-minute.
No,
I don't know where to start.
no. Whom are you pointing at? Are you pointing at the character or the?
Characters. So I was
Okay.
talking about how the director has a critical eye towards all her characters all the time. She's not very kind to her characters. So
Okay.
she has a critical eye towards the main character for the first half, and then the mother character, the father character, the kids. So it may
Vivek, do
not
you
seem
think
like
she's
yeah.
trying to project the defects of every character?
Uh, I mean, she is being critical, but the judgment is left up to you. Whether you think, oh, this is acceptable, or do you dislike them as a person because they are these kind of people, is up to you. But she wants to highlight that these are the kind of people I know, and these are the kind of things I don't like about them.
But I never thought that um, there was a symbolic that kind of I couldn't read a symbolic representation um, uh, in these characters. What you said is largely true, that that's how they behave. But for
Vishal,
example,
she does this in other films also, in Archipelago and Exhibition. This is this.
Archipelago, though it's very obvious. It's
Yeah,
clear.
yeah. It's a little more defined, but
Yes, 100%. But
also in Exhibition.
over here, I couldn't see it. And uh, um,
In that case, I encourage you to keep these in mind and revisit it because it's
oh man,
there.
I'm done with this film. I'm done. I'm not going back again. No, because so it does not sit with this film. Does not sit with me in terms of good writing. Also, it's great filmmaking, like great direction. But I don't think it's really special in terms of writing, because uh, I don't think it's a special screenplay. Like, she sets up things and then they pay off later on. But when I'm watching them, I saw the film again, so I could appreciate what she was doing. But the film in itself is like, okay, fine, it's there. Like, did not really enjoy it. So, anyways, that's a different. I think we are talking about symbolism. So I never felt that symbolism in this film. She did beautifully in Archipelago. I would totally agree with that. But not in this film. Uh, the only symbolism that worked for me, I mean, I don't even know whether it is symbolism, is basically this she getting an older woman getting attracted to a younger man, and it's just this older vibe, or older vibe getting attracted to a younger one, which happens all the time. That is the only symbolism that worked for me. I found that interesting. Also, there was this gender swap over here, because usually it's an older man getting attracted to a younger woman. So I found it very, very interesting. But otherwise, it on a social level, this symbolism did not. There is criticism of those those characters, but not it. Sorry, man. I mean, it's nothing personal, but it didn't really work for me on that level.
I
On the
didn't
other
see any.
hand,
Sorry, go on.
I found this film to be more nuanced than Archipelago, and that's why I thought this is a better film than that. Because in Archipelago, I was like, okay, I know, but you don't have to underline everything. Right? That was my reaction. But yeah, I like this film because of how delicately buttered the bread was. If I can make a very poor uh,
No, but that's what I'm
thing like
saying.
that.
For example, so I was talking about these filmmakers that you go back to. I went back to because of Vivek. So there is the other filmmakers are Jia Jamke and what's her name, Vivek? I forgot. You
Lynn
know,
Ramsey
no, not Lynn Ramsey.
was.
Arey,
Oh, Kelly Reichardt.
Kelly Reichardt.
Oh yeah,
So when
I
I
love her
went back
films.
to them, when I went back to them, uh, I was, especially Jia Janke, I was kind of blown away what the film was doing to me when I revisited it. But it also, more than just the setups and payoffs, it just, what was happening was also working for me, and then I could appreciate it on another level. So I'm not. There is no reason to compare between these filmmakers, because I mean Jia Janke is in a different league. But uh, all these points that you're talking about, right? Like, I understand what she did, but I never found it to be special. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so just
I know you're not keen, but I still recommend that one day, someday, if you've forgotten about the film, that is when you revisit. And yeah, sorry, Nikhil, please go on.
I didn't really see any strong sense of symbolism, but I did really enjoy the nuanced take on the protagonist because with pretty much everything she was doing, it seemed like she was trying to push a sense of delusion into herself to being much younger than she actually is. And this was, I mean, amidst the movie, I think I remembered a brief conversation that came out yesterday about uh, a sense of trade-off, and it was particularly about the film that we were talking about. It was about White Strawberries, but there is a sense of trade-off in this film particularly, and she was she wanted to keep her youth, but at the same time she was sort of running away from her age. We could probably sense that from her constant uh, constant switching from the older group to the younger group, and um, her the entire vacation trying to be a sense of uh, a sense to take her mind away from the menopausal period she's actually walked into, and not having kids. And also I felt the phone conversations were very nuanced. It showed a different shade of the protagonist with every phone call had a very different shade of her emotions, and the it was sort of juxtaposed very brilliantly to give us a notion of a sense of directorial criticism toward the character, but at the same time trying to sympathize with her and what she's going through. I feel this was sort of outside the general flow of discussion, but which is why I asked you to repeat what you had summarized. I'm sorry if it's actually outside the flow of discussion.
No, no,
No,
it's fine. It's
no,
quite in line.
actually, Varun, sorry, I think Nikhil.
No, this is Nikhil.
Sorry. Actually, I had this same question. I just wanted to raise here that
Please go on.
why do people want to go back to their youth days, or they want to be young? I felt in the last movie, that Wild Strawberries,
Mhm.
I also feel that people want to experience their youth or the younger times, means when they were young, and even here, that character wants to be, though even though she knows that there can't be she can't do anything, it's biological, menopause, she can't escape it, but still she knows the reality, she knows the inevitability of the situation. Still she's trying to be which she isn't, and she will never be able to be, because of her age. So I just want I'm the my question is, why do people visit their youth days?
I think there are two different entities here. One is you're enjoying your nostalgia. So you feel lingering toward your childhood because it felt a lot more soothing and a lot more relaxing than your current state. But in the case of this woman, the protagonist here, we didn't really see a sense of nostalgia, but rather a sense of escapism. And I think it was also highlighted with her conversations with her husband. She didn't really have a strong reason to go on the vacation, on an impromptu vacation, but she just wanted to try and understand the midlife crisis she was going through. And which is why I guess she was not really in a state to explain it to her husband as well. It was I felt it was more of a problem. It's not a problem, but it was a pain that was inherent to her, and it wasn't really understandable to people around her.
Because I have seen most of the people who have similar issues where they are unable to compromise with their reality. Either they go to religious field or praying, doing lot of japa and other things. And other part, especially in Western, I think they do adventurous thing to feel that the youth days, to rekindle the memories of youth. So that was little. I thought this is interesting.
That's true. That's true.
That is simply because we don't want to grow up. No, nobody wants to grow up. So
I wouldn't really say
no, I'm just kidding.
everyone has that problem, because I mean, particularly if we are talking about the film, the older couple and the other person who was remarried, they didn't really have the same problem. They had probably come in terms to it, or didn't really give it enough thought to have that existential crisis that the protagonist was going through. And on the other hand, you had the younger couple, younger group, who couldn't give less of a shit about what was going on. And they were alive, and they seemed alive, although they definitely will have problems of their own. But as Mohammed mentioned, I think we have seen a lot of people who do experience this midlife crisis, and essentially their solution might be to switch groups, just so they, in a sense, feel younger again, although it is not biologically true.
Anyone else have an opinion about Mohammed's question about revisiting youth? Anandita, would you like to answer his question? Do you have an opinion about this?
I think it's a very human thing where they just look back to a time where they probably had more energy or fewer responsibility and fewer regrets, I guess. Or yeah. So for me, I do see her maybe looking back and thinking about the opportunity she didn't take. It's a very, I think it's a thing that a lot of people will look back and think about the doors that they didn't walk into, or different or you'll always have some regret or the other. So I think those moments feel uh, you tend to think about those a lot more strongly, or like you feel really bad about them on on days where things just feel like things are not coming together or working together. um, and about the symbolism as well, I think I do agree with even what Nikhil was talking about, how it it was, a lot of it was about going through, she was going through her own process of dealing with what she has learned about, or things that she's been feeling about. Didn't, for me as well, the symbolism around the social commentary about families, or rich, or the upper class or rich, middle class, didn't really stand out as much as the realities of life, where friends will lose and will think, friends that you were super close to, you will lose touch with them. They will not know every nitty-gritties of your life, or sometimes even the big information. It might be limited to like maybe a couple of people. Um, and maybe, and the thing that, and that was the moment where I really liked it, because it did feel like I've seen that happen, or I can imagine that that's going to happen. Friends will be upset that, okay, how come I didn't know about this? I feel like, hey, life just happens and comes in the way, and why bother? Um, so you don't talk about those. So it did feel like, yeah, these are like daily. I mean, I will come across those moments in my life later. I summarized like the last few talking points of what I was thinking about. Sorry.
Additionally, it was very interesting that they cast a woman, because I think with men it is a lot less definitive. The aging process is a lot less definitive, but with women, I guess the menopausal is one stage where they know that they have crossed about half of their life, and that is probably when midlife crisis seems very evident, and it seems like, okay, it's understandable that she's going through a midlife crisis at this point. And I think Vishal had brought up the point of sense of character swap with this film particularly. I think this probably might be an answer to the reason a woman was cast instead of a man.
Yeah, interesting observation. I didn't reflect on that. Yeah, if it had been a men, I think men are very reserved. They suppose a middle-aged man. I think he'll compromise. He will settle down with his incapabilities. If he feels that he can't do anything, he can't fit into any group. I think he will go back to alcohol and probably avoid mixing with any group. Uh, yeah, I felt that that too.
Except mixing the alcohol, right?
Sorry, Samartha. Uh,
I was joking, saying except mixing the various alcohols and making blends and drowning the misery.
mhm.
But it's interesting, Nikhil. I just want to respond to your point. The I appreciate. I think it's a very interesting point. But simply because those biological landmarks aren't there, would you suggest that the men would not have those waves of emotion, like at various stages, or do you think it'll be less intense? Is that what you're saying, or how do you feel about that in general? Like, okay, men don't have those landmarks in terms of what's going on in them, but do you think they'll be equally emotionally impacted or not? Or do they just, like Mohammed suggested, just try to hide it and shove it under the rug and try find an alternate solution?
I guess coping mechanism is quite universal in that aspect, because women could turn alcoholics as well as a result of some kind of existential crisis. But with men, I think it's more of a sociological time that we experience rather than a biological time. We don't really, at some certain period of time, experience a biological point where we sort of understand that, okay, this is where I guess I've spent half of my life doing what I did, and I have say 30 years more left in me. But men do essentially go through the same midlife crisis, but probably in a very different dimension altogether.
Interesting.
I would also like to add that menopausal period, it does lead to depression in women. That is, I mean, it is hormonal after all as well. It does affect, but at least like folks that I know who've reached menopause, I do know they go through their period of depression as well. It does change. It does have. It is definitely a marker of sorts. And how you take it is probably uh, it varies from person to person, but it does definitely it does definitely bring in those depressive states for a bit.
Mm, I was means there is a rush of emotions which women can't means they succumb to those emotions. Is that you are trying to point out?
No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that it is um, menstruation and menopausal. It does have to do with your hormonal changes every month, right? Like everything of that sort. And suddenly, when you do hit menopause, it's usually observed that women do go through depression for a bit.
Oh, okay. Didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, yeah. I wasn't referring to like instability or emotion. That's, I think all of that is like just all the
Mythical.
talk, yeah, mythical and all of that. I'm just talking about it does bring in a state where you don't feel as good.
I just wanted to share this Samartha that have you seen this movie The Lunchbox? There is a Irfan Khan.
Yeah,
Uh,
beautiful movie.
Huh, I think he's also going through a middle life crisis. Uh, could we connect that to because there is a male character, how he's leading his life? Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are some similarities, but so the way I'm thinking of it, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think both the sexes would face some version of this, but I think in the case of the woman, the body chemistry changes might, you know, their journey might be different. I can't attest to that because I'm not a woman, but I think emotionally and psychologically there will be some similarities. I think, irrespective of whether it's a man or a woman. So, like you said, with Irfan Khan's character in Lunchbox, I think there's that longing he has, right? That to me, that's a similarity between that character and this character, where he wants a certain life, something he has already tasted, and when he's seeing those meals being made by that woman, and that sort of a thing. So there are some similarities. Definitely, I think it's a very interesting comparison
Mhm.
that both the sexes do. But one thing I want to mention, to me, this movie. I mean, I when I saw what she is going through, I have been through some of the things that she has been through. I've seen because I had friends who are like very hard party goers when I was in the US, and this was the kind of lifestyle they would lead. And I wasn't that kind of person. Not that I'm some saint, but I was a very different kind of person. So some of the things she would go through, she showed to be going through in the movie, looking at those people, not being able to fit into that group, even though she's trying to, is something I could relate to. And I think a lot of people could relate to, irrespective of age group. I think that part of the crisis can be, across.
Mhm.
But then, of course, there are the midlife crisis aspects of it, right? Whatever she's going through with Alex and all of that. So I think, go to Vivek's original point, I think there's a ton of interesting emotional evolution in this character and in this movie in general. I'll have to see it, at least a second time to understand all of that.
If we are to, I mean, answering Mohammed's question, if we are to evaluate Irfan Khan against the protagonist in this film, there are a lot of nuanced actions that she will undertake, which Irfan Khan doesn't really go forward with. She tries to hook up with a younger person. She, like I said, she tries to hang out with the younger group a lot more and tries to go crazy as much as possible. And uh, she even tries to keep a fatal accident as a secret just so she is accepted. And also, additional to that, I think there were a lot of instances where she didn't really agree with Tom Hiddleston's views, but she just wanted to be part of the pack, and so she somehow just caved in some manner because she didn't want it to seem like the outsider of the group. In terms of Irfan Khan, I felt it was mostly loneliness and a brief sense of nostalgia with about the moments he shared with his wife and the essence of the lunchbox sort of bringing it out. Although I guess it's not really highlighted in the film, but it seemed quite apparent that he was habituated to that lifestyle of getting a lunchbox delivered to his workspace.
Mhm. Yeah. Nice observation. Yeah, actually, the Anna character is means she wants to be and she's trying actively, whereas in Irfan Khan's case, he is not not what to
He
say.
was pretty much given up.
Yeah, pretty much given up. He's happy going on. Yeah, good observation. Thanks.
I don't have an answer for Mohammed's question about why do we revisit our youth, but I want to go back to Nikhil's point about the phone calls. And there's an interesting observation to be made over there that, first of all, she didn't leave her husband for no reason. There's definitely some, you know, uh, big conflict that has taken place, which is making her reevaluate whether she wants to continue with that relationship or not. What it is, we don't know, but there is something which has happened, and you can sense that in the conversation she has on the phone and also with her older friend. And if you make a comparison in the beginning of the movie where she's slowly, bit by bit, fitting into the younger group, her conversations with her husband is more hostile. And then once she's ejected out of that group, after the big confrontation in the middle of the film, then uh, you can see that she's kind of, a little more kinder, a little more willing to talk to him than before. Her conversations are a little longer. She doesn't abruptly hang up the phone anymore. Then when she gets a little more accepted into the older group again, she pulls back from him. And then towards the end, once she finds out that, okay, my belonging is neither here or there, uh, my belonging is back with my husband, and she rekindles with him, and that's where the film ends. That they end on a note that, okay, these two finally have figured out the way forward. Now, that brings me to the meat of the film, or the reason why I appreciate this film so much, is that this entire film, if you think about it from a larger perspective, is about finding your belonging. And this is repeated throughout multiple streams of storytelling in the film. Through multiple angles, you can see that everyone's trying to figure out where they belong. And especially Anna, uh, she's trying to understand what her place is in life, a place is in life. And in the breakdown conversation, she mentions that if if I don't belong, then I will always be in the periphery of things. And that is a haunting thought for a lot of people, that maybe I will never be accepted by anybody. How does that feel like? How do you come to terms with that? Forget about kids, forget about family or husband. Even friends don't want to accept you. How do you deal with that? So yeah, it is about social belonging and hierarchy, and where do you land up and what do you do to fit into the group. I think it was Nikhil who pointed out, right, that she presents herself as more agreeable even though she doesn't
Hmm.
appreciate the character's views. And that was a very interesting observation. So so yeah, it is about dealing with that horrific thought that maybe you don't belong anywhere and you're set to be alone. And that is the anxiety that this film is trying to deal with, it, which is why it is so cruel towards all the characters.
I guess I have a slightly contrasting view regarding the inherent, I mean, the unmentioned conflict between her and her husband. Uh, I mean, at least if the director was trying to insinuate a sense of conflict between her and her husband, I think there might have been points of recollection in the phone conversation at some point of the movie. But it seemed like, I'm not trying to blame Anna again, but it seemed like it was a problem she was trying to grapple with, but her husband was not really understanding of what she was going through. He was probably pretty much the same age as she was, but I mean, this is just an assumption I'm making. And he was not really having the same existential crisis she was going through. Whereas with Anna, she really wanted to move away. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot the train of thought I had, but I don't really think it was essentially a conflict that moved her away, but rather it was something inherent, and something she wasn't really able to communicate with her husband, and she knew that she wouldn't be able to communicate it with him because, which is why she probably opted to take a vacation.
And uh, and this one dialogue caught my attention when she breaks down in the means with her friend when she cries, and she says these words, quote, I mean, I had my opportunities and I didn't take them. uh, then Vivek, how do you put in whether it was where she's belonging or she's regretting what she could have done in her past.
If I remember correctly, that conversation was specifically about kids because uh, either before or after this line, she says that you you took your chances and you have your kids. It may not have been the right man, and even though you've separated and remarried, you will always have your kids, and I see the way they look at you, and it's always with love, and you will always belong somewhere, and I won't. So that specific dialogue that you're referring to was specific to kids. That for one reason or the other, she decided not to have kids in her life, and now that she does want kids, um, it's that option is not available to her anymore.
Mhm.
I'm guessing Muhammad was sort of asking on a grander scale of things, but about the about what she was trying to insinuate with that dialogue, because a lot of things here are coded within the crisis she was sort of going through. And if correct me if I'm wrong, Mohammed, was that the question you were trying to
Yeah,
hint at?
actually, I was thinking, what are those opportunities? It's a plural, so not just kids. She has husband. Kids might be one thing, and about hanging out with friends, partying. I don't know, but what are those opportunities she is regretting, or only
Because
specific for the kids, or yeah, Samar.
sorry to interrupt, Mohammed. I just want to add to your query, which is she's what? She's about 45, right? So I think the kids' crisis, one of the things I was thinking was the kids' crisis family planning typically would have happened a little earlier in her life. So why she, I felt there's more to it than just the wanting of the kids. There are other, all kinds of crises, but I was left a little bit in a cloud over there, like it wasn't very clear what those other, like you said, the plural thing opportunity she's talking about is, but I think it reflects on what she has experienced in the movie until then, right? Like she's looking at the younger people, she possibly sees things that she wanted to do that she didn't do in that stage of her life, right? And I think some of those things are included in the plural. But I just want to support your idea of that what are those opportunities, and let's see what others have to say. Sorry to interrupt, by the way.
I don't think we can give a definitive answer for that because we didn't really have a good purview of the life of the older couple. But one thing we were really sure of was the children that they had. But uh, I think we are left to um, assume that there are a lot of other things that they have and she doesn't, and she was probably um, she was probably not happy with the state she was in.
Yeah,
And
even I think that she was means she was searching for an extended family, and she also mentioned that husband and wife doesn't make a family.
true. That's interesting.
So yeah, yeah. Any inputs? Yeah.
In that case, it probably also, in some sense, reinforces Vivek's opinion on a sense of conflict that was sort of boiling between her husband and her. But I guess we were not really sure of. I guess we were not really sure that it was a conflict that pushed her away. It was every, probably things were simmering between them, and this was the bubble she wanted to burst.
I think Vivek, when he said that she doesn't belong anywhere, that's her. If you look at the poster of the film, I think she's at the back. Then there are the kids, and it's her friends, right in the front. So um, I think the film is about the fact that she's at this point in her life where she doesn't belong anywhere, which I think is answered by the fact that she can't be a mother now. So if she's not a mother, who is she at this point in her life? Because going forward, she cannot be a mother anymore. So um, I don't think we need to dig deep into the plurals. I mean, we can, but the idea was probably to show that, she's right now in a state of being or state of mind where she feels that she doesn't belong anywhere. So I think once,
Mm.
if that idea is conveyed, I think that is much more important than us looking for those multiple reasons. Also, when you talk about I lost those opportunities, uh, it could be being having more than one kids also, one kid
Mm.
also. So
Or having a intimacy with more than one partner, because her friend mentions, no, I had a
possible,
physical relation with more than
possible,
she mentions 2 digit.
100% possible. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, as if she's menopausal and she's talking to her husband, so that's a very clear sign that the main right now what's at the forefront of her mind is family. So that is conveyed, and anything else is, I mean, you go through life. She's 45 and she might have faced several disappointments, she might have several regrets, so there is no point talking about all of them. But he's used menopause to talk about something very concrete at that point in his life. And if the film is about not belonging anywhere, the fact that she gets into a car which has those kids, that car is a symbol. She travels with them, she even lies for them, or half of a lie. So I think that is enough for me. You don't have to be so you we don't have to find each and every reason for a life which is full of disappointments. Like, you don't need to find all disappointment. The idea that she is disappointed coming in a concrete way should be ideally enough.
I was sort of thinking if she was in the market, it could have ended very differently.
Sorry, Nikhil, we couldn't get you.
I was jokingly thinking that if she was in the mafia, it would have ended very differently when she ratted out on her friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I still think the opportunities that she's talking about is having kids at an earlier age, and that's about it. And whether it's with an ex-boyfriend or with the current boyfriend, we don't know. But it is to be assumed that, because she does mention that this lady had kids with another husband, then despite going through a divorce, the kids are still with her. So, I that sort of gives me a connection over there, that she's probably talking about having kids with someone else or maybe the same guy at an earlier age. But I still want to uh, talk a little bit about this issue in the film about sense of belonging, and because if you think about it, it is essentially about being loved, right? Like, if you belong somewhere, then you're accepted by those people, you're loved by those people, and that's what is currently missing in her life. She doesn't feel love and belonging from her husband, not really from her friend, because her friend is more interested in knowing the nitty gritty of what is going on in the relationship, and uh, also any effort to go into the group of young kids has proven to be quite stupid, in the sense that she's made a fool of herself by getting involved in an accident, and she's made a had an embarrassing encounter with the younger guy who's not interested in sleeping with her. In fact, he's interested in basically any female who's not a part of the family. You can see that towards the end of the film. They go for a lunch. He's flirting with the daughter of the family over there, and then someone comes to visit from another family. He's flirting with them. So uh, that's what is going on. But I still want to hear more thoughts about this idea of um, when you lack love and support in your life, or when you don't find a sense of belonging. How do you deal with that, and what does that do to you? Because when you watch the film for the second time, you can see this underscored throughout the film.
Mm, shall I reply for that? Okay.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Actually, I read a book, Ikigai. I think Vishal will be familiar with that. Ikigai, it mentions that for a long living, we must have a purpose. Purpose, what to say, a passion. So I feel that every human partner or every human person whom we know in future time they are going to leave us. Um, there will be a existential crisis where we'll be alone. We'll be not will not be considered or given any importance in this society. So at that time, in that book, it was written that you find your purpose, uh, what you are good at, uh, not means apart from human relation. Then you will be able to lead your life pretty much okay. Means you'll be happy. You'll not be in a depressed kind of a mood, or you'll find difficult to spend your time with your own self. So book reading, many things here they are mentioned in Ikigai. So yeah, it's a very interesting question that what do we do when people neglect our presence, when they don't see any. It is happening nowadays because older people. Uh, because in older days, these older people had their very important role in a what to say in a joint family. They were regarded as a source of information for many things like medicine, what kind of things to do. Many information was carried by these older people. Now, due to the technology, we get everything. We don't need a elder to suggest us. Google Baba is the what to say the greatest known professor in this universe so far. uh, what I'm trying to say that yeah, it is going to happen more. People are going to feel more loneliness in coming days because they will not be given any recognition of their presence in their, even in their family lives, in their friends life. Yeah, friends are very few of them who can keep in touch with us for a longer period of our life. And yeah, that's it. It's a good question that what do we do when we are not needed more in this world.
Vishal or Nikhil, do you have any take on this?
I think this is a long topic. So I think I would be more comfortable if not comfortable. I think we would go away from the movie. We talk about uh, these topics. I mean, I enjoy these topics a lot, but I think we need a
It is in context of the film, right?
separate conversation.
Could
So,
could
as
there
in
be a summary
context
of?
of the film, I did say right, like this uh, sense of belonging. I think it's also for her. I think it's also more of a phase because to me, the fact that she's going through menopause, it's very clear sign that it's a phase. It's something which has built up over a period of time, obviously, but it's a phase. So I'm not really sure um, what. I mean, personally, I don't know
I
how.
guess. Oh, sorry.
No, go on, go.
I guess this is probably where the film really turned. It took a darker turn for me, but I felt she really didn't belong anywhere, but she had to uh, have a sense of illusion to feel that she is part of something that she is essentially not. Because if she really had a sense of rekindling with her husband, she wouldn't have I felt a sense of moving away, sense to move away from him in the first place. So there weren't really any element that suggested that there was a sense of conflict resolution with her and her husband, and as a result, she's much happier than she was before with her husband right now. It felt like she needed a guise of feeling belonged to someone. because it was very sure that she didn't belong with the older group, nor did she belong with the younger ones. It seemed like she had to take a very drastic step of trying to delude herself. I think I'll have to drop off at this point because there are a few people who are waiting for me. And brilliant conversation. I also had a very brief question to everybody here because I wanted to know what about the film did you feel did not fit in? Because I really had a tough time trying to be a strong critique about it. But one element which I felt could have been done better was the point where she breaks down with her friend there. It could have been at least a medium shot just so we could get a real sense of her emotions, or a close up. Close up would have been stellar, but I don't think that would have ex- uh, given us a hint of her body language as well. But a medium shot, I guess, would have worked stellarly there. But apart from that, I think the film, especially the screenwriting, was stellar, and it was juxtaposed brilliantly. The phone conversations, the happenings, the situation in the uh, uh, what was that place? Tuscany, the situation in Tuscany, and her vacation. I think it was juxtaposed very brilliantly. Apart from that, I think that was the only drawback I had regarding the film. Overall, I absolutely enjoyed it, and it did take a darker turn for me.
So, Varun, usually when
This
directors
is
are
Nick.
using a wider lens to cover a very private moment, that the meaning of that could be implied that we are not a part of this intimate moment and we should not
which
intrude.
is which is weird because we were sort of involved throughout the film, and this was probably at one point where we actually needed to be with her, since we were with her throughout the film, and this was probably the intimate moment we were waiting for. We
It
were
has to
sort
be a conscious choice, right? Like someone like Joanna Hogg, who's so particular about framing, I can't imagine she misses a great opportunity like this without purpose. There has to be,
exactly.
yeah,
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
I mean, I was
But
sort
I
of
think
probing
Vivek, you
uh,
mentioned that this was her first film, right?
She has been a filmmaker longer than this. She made a student film. By the way, in case you guys didn't know, not only should she discover Tom Hiddleston, she also discovered Tilda Swinton. So Tilda Swinton's first role was Joanna Hogg's first student film.
Oh, she's also
I'm,
discovered Tilda Swinton's daughter.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
right,
guess I'll
right.
have to take a leave right now. I'll let you guys get to it. And brilliant conversation. Thanks, by the way.
Okay, Nikhil, see you.
See you.
Sorry, guys, I've been in and out today because I'm usually irresponsible in terms of how much charge is remaining my device. But with the back issue, going and getting the charger and everything, it's been a little bit of a chore.
I'm just glad you're able to come back. That's always nice. So we were just talking about the emotional weight of the film and what do you how do you deal with the idea of not being loved, and so everyone was taking turns to respond to that. Do you have any input on that question?
No, no, not really, but I've learned a lot from the discussion in that regard, in the context of
Hmm.
that question.
Hmm.
I just think this is a movie that can easily take another viewing.
Hmm.
It's all written on her face,
Right.
and but the thing that you mentioned about the wide angles, that's I just dropped in again when I heard that word. It was
Yeah.
kind of interesting, right? There's lots of wide angle work, and the sound was a little weird too. The sound design, it felt like I didn't even feel like there was boom mics over the individual actors. Like it was in some central place and it was capturing some of the ambient noise. Maybe it's part of the dietetics thing you were talking about.
Oh, by the way,
Uh,
the sound is all designed. It's not like it's not a live recorded sound. It's designed in post.
Oh, for this film, like the whole, every single thing was
Yeah. It's all put in post. Like all the car sounds you hear, all the birds you hear, it's all put in post production.
wow,
It's not
interesting.
live recording. So if you don't, I can send you a better copy of the film if you want, and try to listen to it with a good pair of headphones or good pair of speakers with a slightly louder volume. You'll see the sound is doing a lot of assisting in the storytelling also.
Interesting. So one question I had for you: what about the visuals? The camera, it looked like a. I don't know what they used, but what did they experiment with digital technology for this? Because 2007, right? I don't know if Red had just made its camera, and some other people, Ari or whatever you pronounce it, had just made one digital camera. So it looked like they had shot with a lower end digital camera, but I don't know what they did. I can check it out on IMDb. But if you had any knowledge on that.
Yeah, so Red was available in 2007, but it was available on an invite basis that you had to be a part of, like you had to apply for it and they'll review and uh, approve or reject the application. So the only film they had done by then was actually they were still shooting was Steven Soderbergh's Che. That was the first
Oh
Red
yeah,
film,
yeah. And he
and
told it was like three parts, right? This is that movie, I think.
two
It's
parts.
like
Yes, two parts. The other digital camera which was available, there were two other digital cameras. One was Panavision, which had a very horrible track record, and they cancelled it. Like they stopped shooting Panavision Genesis. I think they stopped shooting films with this. If you want to see what that looks like, you should look at Michael Mann's. Vishal, what's the movie with Tom Cruise?
Collateral.
Collateral. Yeah, you should watch that movie to see what the Panavision Genesis looks like. Then there
yeah, but
was so.
collateral. I've seen collateral many times. Actually, I'm a fan of Paul Cameron's work, the DP. I
Hmm.
thought collateral doesn't. I don't think they used the Genesis. They used a different night vision camera. It's a
It
very rare.
looks very ugly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like the noise floor is pretty bad, and
Noise flow is bad. Motion blur is pathetic. All yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of problems with it. There
right.
was Sony F35 available, but extremely like expensive productions had access to it. It's not a easy toy to get your hands on. So what these guys were using was, I think, a Sony broadcast camera.
Ah,
So
it makes sense. Yeah. Now, yeah, I guess.
they had a very tight budget, right? So one of the limitations, they decided that okay, we'll use a broadcast camera, so the setup time is less, and the crew required to shoot the film is less, and also they designed the cinematography to match the limitations of the camera. So if you watch it in a lower resolution, you can't tell if it's shot with digital or film, but if you watch it in a higher resolution, the ugliness of the image tends to be a little
Okay,
more dominant.
so I guess the reason I felt it was digital is possibly because this was a slightly lower quality print. Is that right? Like, I think that's what has happened. Maybe I should check out a slightly. But wait, one thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, the first time I saw this film was on DVD. Back
Uh,
then, it's difficult to see because the lower resolution kind of hides a lot of visual
yeah, that's
defects.
720p, right? I think that's 720 progressive. Your
Yeah, what you have access to is the HD version, which is available on online streaming, and there's even a 1080p version available, which is even more what do you call it? Accurate in showing all the defects of the image. But yeah, they designed the cinematography with those limitations in mind, and they designed the sound with the
yeah.
environment on all these things in mind. So it may seem like it sounds like it's recorded just with the camera itself, like shot with a handycam kind of thing. But
Correct.
but if you listen to it with a good pair of speakers or headphones, you'll see that the audio is always audible, but the environment is very built up, and is built
Very
up specifically because of the lack of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying originally, I was seeing some parallels to Rita and Ozu in the way she was, not moving the camera, having very wide shots. The subjects in a conversation are far away from the camera. So it was kind of interesting. And like you said, no motion, right? Like not much motion at all. Like maybe that car scene and a few other things had some camera movement. but otherwise there wasn't much at all. I don't know if some of that had to do with, if you want to move the camera, it's going to cost you more, right? So is it, you think it's a budget restriction or a creative choice in this case? Is this her language, cinematographic language in other movies as well?
It's a creative decision designed to hide budgetary restrictions.
I,
So yeah, she has a similar style in other films, not the latest one, but in the other two films. And you're completely right with Ozu, that she owes a big part of her filmmaking style to Ozu. And I've mentioned this in the director description in the main group also. And if you think about it, the setting of this film, it's a character analysis film set during the vacation, which is
yeah.
what Ozu does, right?
Hmm.
He takes the vacation backdrop, something that's supposed to be relaxing and fun and a break from reality, to dig deeper into all uh, the all the problems which begin to surface.
Yeah, yeah. And one last question. I won't hog more time, but the lighting setups. One shot that I like in terms of lighting a lot is when she gets up in the morning and there's a very warm shaft of light. For some reason, I like that shot a lot. With available light and simple setups, or am I missing something? Because some really good cinematographers have this ability to make you think it is shot with available light, whereas actually the setups are quite tricky and complicated.
Yeah. So, do you remember the length of that scene? Is it like one shot, or is it a long dialogue piece that takes place over there?
It's like one of the first 40 minutes. There's like if you look at it, you can't tell if they shot a morning scene in the night. That's how I felt, because
Okay.
you can have a gel and, get an orangish hue, right?
The
So,
clue here would be if it's a one single shot, right? Like it's a B-roll kind of a shot, like a insert shot. Then it is shot with real real light,
I
because
see.
what might have happened is, like, they saw this beautiful opportunity in the morning, and they'll be like, okay, this is perfect, let's shoot this tomorrow morning.
Oh,
So they
I
wake
see.
up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., get that shot, and they got it. But if you have to set a dialogue scene, or any scene with multiple characters, you will need multiple angles, and it will take a long time to do multiple takes, and sunlight changes by the minute, right? So you will not have that consistency. That's when you need to support the light. Additionally, another time where you may have to support the light is the camera doesn't have that dynamic range to get the beauty of the shot you desire. So you have to add additional lights to make sure that the exposure is able to deal with all the range of light that you're throwing at the camera. So
Sure. And then,
there's
you underexpose it in post production or something, right? Or over whatever you want to get the desired effect, rather than.
back then there was no opportunity for that. What you got in camera is what appears on the screen. So there was no log workflow back then, at least in 2007. So everybody was shooting linear.
But even with chemical emulsion, I heard that one of the things people would do is, if they, like, you've seen the style of people like Gordon Willis and Harry Savides and all these guys, right? With that, all the blacks, rich blacks.
Right.
I heard what they do is, they if they're shooting with film, they overexpose, as in like they expose beyond what it has to be for that level of the blacks, and
Right,
then
right. Color grading will happen, but this log workflow, right, shooting in this gray kind of
okay,
raw format, that this did not exist in 2006, 2007.
yeah,
You still went through color grading, and you still went through post processing, and even with cellulite, right, that's called color timing. It's slightly
correct,
different.
yeah,
Yeah. So basically, they have different dyes, and they expose the print in one dye for X amount of time and the other dye for Y amount of time, and so on. So that's why it's called color timing. And it's also called printer lights, based on what kind of exposure you're setting for what color and all that.
correct,
So yeah, all those processes are available, but this raw workflow of shooting log and getting high dynamic range, all that was simply not an option, especially with broadcast camera. No chance.
yeah. Interesting. Thanks, man, for that. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So uh, And any closing observations about the film, and or any last words about the film before we wrap up? Mohammed or Vishal?
Yeah, I think I have said what I wanted to about the film. I think I don't have anything else to say actually.
Same year, but I really loved, I really uh, like the point Vivek mentioned at the beginning, that she is carrying the bag, and how she is at the beginning itself. It is neglected. She was neglected. So that part I really uh, I didn't observe and couldn't relate. But thanks, Vivek. I think you have many more things to share, but because time restriction, so we'll wind up. That's the best option we have.
Samartha, by the way, the regarding lights,
Yeah.
it's always uh, nobody, everyone wants to use lights to make something like the way they want to. If you have something in your mind, if you have access to lights, you would use it. So there are multiple options that you have. But if you're not using lights at all, if that's a call that you take, then for example, there's Corrida's first feature film was Mabrushi. They shot it without any lights. Quite a stunning film without any lights. I mean, I
Oh,
think
marvelously shot with available light.
no lights, no lights. So
Oh,
it's all practical lights, available lights, and the production design was such that they bring
oh,
out, you know. So unless you take that call, you don't really want to make a film with no lights.
correct,
So
correct.
uh, yeah, I mean budget is a constraint, but you try to use as much as lights as you can, ideally.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for that.
Samartha, anything to wrap up the conversation?
No, no. I wanted to thank everybody. I think that's one of the beauties of these discussions is you always get some points that you didn't think of. So, for example, just now when Mohammed spoke about the neglect, I was thinking of loneliness through the whole film, but not neglect. And for me that was an eye opener. So I wanted to thank everybody for this kind of very useful discussion.
And Mohammed, by the way, that observation came from you. So credit to you, not me. So
No, actually, I know. Sorry, there is a very
no,
bad
no, no problem.
background commotion.
No problem.
So I think you have lot of screen, because do you remember in our first conversation we used to take a particular scene, and I think that
Yes.
I really loved that discussion, but we'll definitely hope for future such discussion. So overall, I thank all the members, Vishal too. Actually, on Vishal's point, I will be thinking on that with music, or background music, could it be done better? Because Satyajit Ray's movie Patar Panchali, that too speaks a lot, and he uses sounds there, and we were able to connect. And he has rightly mentioned that for a larger audience, this movie was not meant. So that was also a point for me to think about.
Guys, just give me a few seconds. I'm going to end the live stream, and then we can continue a conversation about outside the outside the film. Just give me a few seconds.